Welcome to Prime 9, the countdown show that covers the very best in baseball. Guaranteed to start arguments, not end them. This week, it's the 9 greatest left fielders. Why 9? That's baseball. 9 players, 9 innings, Prime 9.
One-handed grab, he made the catch!
And another big play by the left fielder.
To qualify for this show, a player had to have had a minimum of 900 games in left field, and to have done so in the modern era since 1901.
He's made a Gold Glove play out there.
And while defense carries extra weight, when you're picking the best right and center fielders, the men who made this list got there primarily because they could hit.
This one is going to be gone.
Quite often for power.
Bonds hits one to left center field. It is here, number 700.
That said, there are some to consider who are best remembered for both their bats and their legs.
The greatest of all time. Thank you.
Many of the game's top left fielders are true icons of the game, Hall of Famers. But did they make our list? Let's find out, starting with number 9 on Prime 9.
His nickname was Rock.
Here's the Rock.
Because he's built like a rock, I'm sure. When he first broke in, he had been a second baseman. We kidded him after the first month. He got that nickname after his glove because he had a little bit of trouble at second base. That's when he became a left fielder, by the way.
Look at the play by Rock. Tim Raines been throwing some leather.
And once Tim settled into left field, his career took off.
It'll be a straight steal for Raines.
Tim started his career with 27 straight steals and set an NL rookie record with 71.
And he's in there.
But this was just the first of 6 consecutive seasons in which Raines would swipe at least 70 bases.
Every day I wake up in the paper to see how Tim Raines did, and want to be like him.
Not only was he a menace on the base paths, he also wreaked havoc on those he faced at the plate.
I had no success against him.
Jessica Roscoe now facing Raines.
Those kind of guys are just tough. You did everything you could to keep them off the bases because they would mess with your head.
High drive into deep left field. Would you believe a grand slam for Tim Raines?
He had power, he had speed, he could hit for average.
Tim hit .320 or better 3 straight years for the Expos and won a batting title in '86 with a .334 average.
Put him at the top of the batting order. And what you did is you disrupted the game.
And there he goes, he got a quick ball. McGuire throws him into left field, and Raines is on his way to third.
That disruption creates runs.
Raines, the possible only run of the game, is 90 feet away.
He just did everything that, a lot of left fielders didn't do back then.
Rock also stepped up his game in the postseason, like in the '93 LCS when he hit .444 for the White Sox and reached base 14 times in 6 games.
When people talk about outfielders and guys that can play, as you said, they mentioned Tim Raines. There was a reason for it. He was that good.
Unlike Raines, who enjoyed a 23-year career in the major leagues, our next left fielder played less than half that, but it was all he needed to make a memorable and lasting impact.
In only 10 years in the majors, he had over 360 home runs and was elected to the Hall of Fame.
Is Ralph Kiner.
Ralph Kiner was a big, strong fella. Joined the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1946, first year after World War II concluded.
Before the war, Ralph had never played above AA, but quickly showed why he belonged in the bigs.
Ralph Kiner is a good distance hitter with a record to be proud of early in his career.
I was very fortunate to be able to lead the league with 23 home runs. Then after that, my second year in baseball, I ended up with 51 home runs.
And thus began an unprecedented and still unmatched streak.
Led the National League in home runs not only that year, but in each of his first 7 seasons. Remarkable accomplishment.
It's another home run for Ralph Kiner.
Kiner's 7-year stretch of dominance is one of the great peaks in baseball history. That kind of 7-year performance is hard to find.
And the reason Ralph steered toward home runs made perfect sense.
The home run hitters drive Cadillacs and singles hitters drive Fords. Most ball players were making very little money. The ones that made some money were the home run hitters.
Kiner swings and sends a towering belt deep to left field. It's going, it is gone.
Fortunately for me, I bought a Cadillac.
With 369 home runs and more than 1,000 RBIs, Kiner stands amongst the most celebrated power hitters in baseball. We can only wonder what those numbers would have been had a bad back not forced him from the game.
If Kiner had been able to sustain even a normal decline, you could have seen him approaching 500 home runs. You could see him ranked maybe as one of the top 5 left fielders ever.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the modern era's greatest left fielders. We've stated our case for both 9 and 8, which means it's time for number 7. If you don't know him, take your hat off to Al Simmons, a dynamic force in left for one of the most storied dynasties in baseball history.
Al Simmons was a great hitter on one of the greatest teams in baseball, the Philadelphia Athletics of 1929, 30, 31.
The batting lineup contained great sluggers. Bing Miller, Mickey Cockrell, Al Simmons.
His Philadelphia Athletics beat out the Ruth and Gehrig Yankees for 3 straight American League pennants. In those 3 World Series, in each series, Simmons batted 300 or better with at least 2 home runs. And the only other player in baseball history to have 3 consecutive World Series like that is Babe Ruth.
4 times in his career, Al hit over 380, and twice he eclipsed 390. And he was doing this in the company of some of baseball's all-time best.
This is a guy who led the league in batting average a couple of times. He led the league in total bases. Mind you, this is in a league with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. It wasn't that easy to lead the league in statistical categories.
Left to right, Gehrig, Cronin, Fox, and Simmons.
So when you've got Al Simmons, you're talking about one of the best players in a hitter's era.
Al Simmons was a type hitter that could hit to any field, right field, left field, center field.
He had power to all fields. He was able to rack up 60 or 70 extra base hits a year.
Just think how hard it is to drive in 100 runs in a season. Al Simmons in 1930 drove in 101 runs just in his home games. And then in 1932, he did it again. He's the only player in baseball history who in 2 different seasons had 100 RBIs just in home games.
Simmons was a complete hitter. He was one of the best outfielders of the 20s. All of these things make him one of the top 9 left fielders ever.
I have always said the best all-around player that I played against was Carl Yastrzemski.
Yaz was a one-man wrecking crew. He did everything you expect of a superstar player.
He hit well for average, he won a couple of batting titles, and he was always a great left fielder.
His mastery of balls hit toward him was matched by his conquest of the Green Monster.
Yaz made left field an art form. No one had ever done that.
Playing left field in Fenway is very, very tough. You know, the ball coming off that wall, timing it.
A great catch by Yastrzemski.
Well, I think Yastrzemski was the best of anyone I've ever seen at learning how to play the left field wall.
And that'll be off the wall. Yastrzemski barehands it and holds Bando to a single.
He made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. In Yankee Stadium in '67, Tom Tresh hit a shot that looked like it was way over Yaz's head. He kept going and going.
Well hit. Yastrzemski going back.
And dove facing the fence and caught the ball.
One-handed grab. He made the catch.
What a catch that was.
He just loved to play defense, and of course we know what he could do at bat.
Hitting-wise, I mean, you could not pitch to him. You couldn't walk him even.
Nice stop by Carew. No play. A run scores. It's 2-1.
When they needed someone to come through with a base hit or something, Yaz was a man.
He was a good hitter, but then of course he decided to take his play to another level, and in '67 he erupted as a really strong power hitter.
It was in '67 when Yaz had a season for the ages.
Dick Williams has called it the greatest season he's ever seen a player have from start to finish.
He had a year like I have never watched any player have.
I'll never forget, Yaz says, boys, get on base, because I'm going to take you home.
Base hit to center. Lonborg scores.
He rose to the occasion, time after time.
He goes for 3.
The '67 was the year that really brought Yaz to the forefront. Of course, he won the Triple Crown.
Deep to right field, number 44.
He's the last Triple Crown winner, and I've never watched a player do as much for one club.
Well, an icon in Boston, there's no question about it. And, of course, we all know a great Hall of Famer and put up great numbers.
Yaz, to me, is one of the greatest all-time left fielders that the game has seen.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the greatest left fielders in the last 2 centuries. Tim Rock Raines and Ralph Kiner got us started, followed by Al Simmons and Carl Yastrzemski, which means it's time for number 5.
I love watching Manny. I think he's one of the best hitters that's ever lived. What strikes me is his demeanor at the plate, how he can just focus and relax. It looks like he's just playing in his backyard with his kids or something. You're in the middle of a stadium filled with 50,000 people, and yet he looks so relaxed and so calm.
He's just got the greatest bat in the world. You think you can throw him away, and he slaps the ball the other way.
Number 500 for Manny Ramirez.
Pitch him inside, you can spin on it. Those are tough guys to pitch to. He's the kind of guy that can just ignite a team.
Something he does best in October.
Manny Ramirez lost it into the seats.
Of all the players in the modern era, there's very few that have been to as many postseasons as had Manny.
I took this to another level.
A whole new level, for his 29 postseason home runs are the most in baseball history.
You always had the feeling if the best relief pitcher is in for that team.
Here comes Frankie Rodriguez.
If anybody could hit that guy, it would be Manny Ramirez.
3-run walk-off home run!
Watching him break in with the Indians, you could tell he was going to be a good hitter. I don't think anybody knew that he was going to be as great a hitter as he is today.
And despite his carefree demeanor, some might say peculiar.
Come on, Manny, here we go. Hey, here we go.
It's no accident he's one of the best right-handed hitters of any era.
He's very deceiving because he's one of the hardest workers that you will ever see.
The Manny Ramirez show today.
7 rounds of BP today.
He was always in the batting cage. He was always working on being a better hitter.
The end result has been 12 seasons with at least 30 home runs and 100 RBIs.
It didn't seem to matter whether he was in Cleveland or Boston or Los Angeles. You could almost guarantee that Manny was going to deliver 30 to 35 homers, hit 300, and knock in 120 runs.
Now Manny drives one deep in far to left center, up by the light towers, and gone.
He had so many big hits, and he was so difficult to pitch to. He was the most devastating right-handed hitter I've seen, and he did it year in and year out.
Leading off, number 24, Ricky Henderson.
Let me first say that he's the best leadoff hitter of all times, without a doubt.
And thanks to his power, defense, and speed, the 4th best left fielder.
He goes again. He's in there.
He was made to play baseball. He really was. He had all the tools. Just an incredible physical specimen that used his talent to the max.
And that produced one of the game's most amazing big league portfolios, with a record 81 leadoff home runs. The most runs scored.
There goes a new all-time run-scoring record by Ricky Henderson.
And then there's his career stolen base record.
All-time Major League stolen base leader.
Not to mention his single-season mark of 130.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
He was a perfect storm of speed, intelligence, strategy. He just was a step ahead of pitchers all the time.
I'm looking at pitching. I'm trying to outthink him, thinking about is he going to throw a breaking ball, where he's going to throw the pitch, and who's at the plate, and what is the count on the batter.
Once you give Henderson that little edge, that's all he needs. He doesn't need an edge.
I think a lot of players, steal a base and then they get caught. They get the fear to run again. You got to take the fear out.
A fearless man, Ricky channeled that fear to the other team.
Nobody disrupted defense that the opposition team had to contend with to be that much of a force offensively. He could just change the course of the game.
And he did so with his bat, his glove, and his legs.
People always try to categorize him as being the greatest leadoff hitter of all time. I think Ricky was one of the greatest players, period, of all time.
Ricky Henderson was just amazing. And I don't think that we'll ever know how great this guy was unless we ask Ricky Henderson.
Today,
I'm the greatest of all time. Thank you.
Are you Roger Maris?
No, I'm Stan the Man.
There are generations of fans who never got to see just how good Stan Musial was.
We've sort of lost an image of Stan Musial. Musial became more of kind of a funny old guy who would show up and play the harmonica on Old Timers Day or at Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. But that should not obscure what a great hitter Musial was.
And there it goes. A home run over the right field screen. Musial's teammates gather at the plate to greet the hero.
Some young player said, Stan, how come you're happy all the time? And he said, kid, if you knew you were going to hit 340, you'd be happy too.
Stan actually hit over 340 7 times in his career.
Musial smashes a home run into the seats in left center.
That led to a .331 career average, including 7 batting titles.
Musial's distinctive batting style, the body twisted into a coiled-up position, was a menacing sight to any pitcher.
I first came to this stance when I came to the big leagues.
He stood back in the box, and he lunged into the ball.
With his unorthodox stance, Musial hits to all fields.
If you pitch him outside, he'd hit laser beams to right field, and if you pitched him in, he'd hit laser beams to left field.
Right there, there it is! Into left field! Hit number 3,000! Musial ran first, on his way to second with a double!
Musial wound up with over 3,600 hits and was regarded pretty well as the preeminent hitter in the National League during most of his years.
Stan may not be first on our talent-rich list of left fielders, but that in no way detracts from his impact on the game.
You look at Stan Musial, you say, okay, maybe he's only the 3rd best left fielder in history, but he's still one of the 10 to 12 best players in history.
Stan was just a great hitter, a great ball player. From the first day he ever stepped on the field to the last day he left the game.
We now return to Prime 9, where this week we're featuring the 9 greatest left fielders. Keep in mind that they had to have played since 1901. And they also must have played at least 900 games in left. So now it's time for number 1 and 2, the best left fielders in the last 100 and some years. We begin with number 2.
I've never seen anybody that could do wherever they wanted to do, whenever they wanted to do it on the baseball field. If you wanted to get a hit, you got a hit. If you want to make a great catch, you got a great catch. If you need a home run, he hit a home run.
Bonds, game tie. He has hit more home runs than anyone who has ever played the game.
Everybody thinks of Barry Bonds as the home run hitter, but he was arguably the best defender in the game.
Bonds coming in. He makes the catch.
His judgment and jumps on the balls was phenomenal. He was a center fielder playing left field.
He was as good an all-around player as you were going to see in the history of the game. Was the best player in our era.
Bonds was undoubtedly a man of many talents. But the reigning single-season home run champion is best remembered for his uncanny ability at the plate.
There she goes! Out of here!
He knew what was coming almost all the time. He rarely got fooled, and he recognized fear, just like that dog recognizes fear from that postman.
Nobody wanted to pitch to him, and if you dared make one pitch, even near the strike zone, he seemed to hurt you every single time.
This guy might go 2 or 3 at-bats without even seeing a pitch, and then he'd get that one pitch and Paya!
Bonds has hit number 70!
There were times he was sleeping. We had to wake him up, say, hey man, we got game time. First pitch he saw, he hit a home run, no batting practice, no nothing. And that's when I was like, man, how does this guy do this?
The MVP of your team or the MVP of the league is somebody like that, that when the chips are down, he's going to come through for his club.
Barry's elite status earned him a record number of MVP awards, including an unprecedented 4 in a row.
Barry Bonds changed the game.
But no left fielder has been more splendid than Ted Williams, a 2-time Triple Crown winner who made quite a bang right from the start of his Hall of Fame career.
In his rookie year, he set a freshman RBI record
which still stands. He knocked in 145 runs in his first season.
1939, he had 31 homers and 145 RBIs, hit .327, and became the focal point of Boston baseball immediately.
Teddy Ballgame went on to win the most ever batting titles as a left fielder, and no one in the history of the game has a better career on base percentage than Ted.
He was a great hitter, but they scoff at him. Well, he couldn't field. None of that is true. He was a very good fielder. Bobby Dorr, his friend, says, well, he was so long-legged that you'd think he was loafing, but he was actually, it's hard to beat him.
Of course, Ted, a big 6'3" lanky guy, when he went after the ball, he didn't look like he was really hustling like a little guy chasing. Ted taking those big lopes going after him.
He was so quick. He was strong. He was big and had great eyesight. No one ever had the coordination that he had.
So he was an all-round athlete. He was not the one-dimensional player that we think of because of that emphasis early in his career on I want to be the greatest hitter.
The lanky Red Sox rookie with the awesome swing told people flatly that he intended to become the greatest hitter in baseball history.
Ted was not bashful, so he came up, he was ready. He knew he could do it.
Oh, I think I'm going to do all right. They throw in where I'm swinging, and I'll be swinging. Might mean the old ball game.
He had a world of confidence, and it was well placed.
Considered by many to be the greatest hitter who ever lived, Ted's confidence never wavered. Not even on the final day of the 41 season.
He hit a steady 400 throughout most of the, until he came down to that famous last day of the season, when he was hitting an even 400. And they were playing a doubleheader against the Philadelphia Athletics. And Joe Cronin, the Red Sox manager, said, Ted, you've got it.
Joe Cronin did say, Ted, you can sit this out and be a 400 hitter.
I think if I were 10, I would sit out today.
And knowing Ted, there's no way he was going to do that.
Joe Cronin came to me and he said, Ted, you don't even have to play today. He said, officially, you're 400. I said, hell no, Joe, I want to play.
In any event, Williams was in the lineup, and Williams came out hitting, went 6 for 8 on the final day of the season, finished at .406. Nobody has hit 400 since.
You think about how hard it is to hit 300 in this game, and then you bump it up to 400 and realize it hasn't been done since 1941.
Any 400 season is remarkable. It's the way he finally did it. There's something marvelously heroic about it.
When you think about it, the splendid splinter kicked off the single greatest left field lineage in the history of baseball. From Williams to Yaz to Jim Rice to Manning. The Red Sox have had 3 left fielders in the last 70 years whom we have rated as the very best. It obviously takes a very special man to master a monster. Well, that's our Prime 9. What's yours?